You need to leave. Your kids are too noisy and messy. Patricia slammed her fork down, glaring at me across the dinner table. My name is Olivia, and at 34, I was being told by my mother-in-law to move out of a house she thought was hers. What she didn't know was that before he passed away, her husband George had secretly left the house to me, knowing exactly how she would act once he was gone. The kids were just playing outside, Patricia, I said, wiping my daughter's chin. They're 6. That's what kids do. Patricia scowled. This is my house, and I won't have it turned into a playground. James and I raised Michael without this kind of chaos. She gestured at the children's artwork on the fridge like it was an eyesore. Across the table, my brother-in-law James nodded in agreement while his wife, Sophie, smirked. They had moved in months ago after James lost his job, but somehow, their presence never seemed to bother Patricia. You have until tomorrow to leave, Patricia continued. I talked to Michael, and he agrees. My heart sank. My husband, Michael, was deployed overseas, but we had already discussed Patricia's behavior. He told me to stand my ground when the time was right. I remembered George calling me into his study 2 years ago. His voice was weak, but determined. Olivia, listen to me. Patricia will try to take the house from you. She's always resented how much Michael loves you, but I've made sure she can't. The house is yours. He handed me an envelope with all the legal documents proving I was the owner. You'll know when to use these. Now, as Patricia planned how she would redecorate her house, I knew that moment had arrived. You can't just throw them out, Mom. Michael's sister, Lisa, said from the doorway. She usually stayed out of family fights, so her support surprised me. Patricia waved a hand dismissively. Olivia has money from her parents. She can find an apartment. I held my children close and whispered, It's okay. We're not going anywhere. Patricia's face darkened. Did you not hear me? I want you gone by tomorrow. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. Patricia flinched at the noise. Actually, Patricia, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about, she snapped. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope George had given me. My hands trembled slightly, but I stayed firm. George left something for you, I said. I think it's time you knew the truth. Patricia's face twisted in confusion. Behind her, James and Sophie exchanged worried glances. They had been counting on staying here rent-free. What are you talking about? Patricia demanded. George left everything to me. I placed the envelope on the table. Not everything, not the house. Patricia's hands shook as she opened the documents. Her face turned pale as she read. This can't be real. But it was. Every word, every signature, every legal stamp. The house was never hers. She had just tried to evict the wrong person. Patricia's hands shook as she flipped through the trust documents. Her face grew paler with each page. The dining room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and my children's soft whispers. This is fake, she finally said, but her voice was weak. George would never do this to me. He would never give our home to. She waved a hand at me, unable to say my name. To his grandchildren's mother. I finished for her. To the woman who took care of him while you were busy with your social clubs. Is that so hard to believe, Patricia? James leaned forward, frowning. Mom, what do those papers say? I spoke before she could. They say that George left this house to me and the twins. He knew what would happen once he was gone, so he made sure we were protected. But that's not fair, Sophie blurted out, losing her usual calm. We were planning to renovate the East Wing for our home office. I turned to her. You mean my East Wing? The one you've been living in rent-free for 3 months. Patricia slammed the papers on the table. I won't accept this. I'll call my lawyer tonight. Go ahead, I said, taking out my phone. Want Mr. Harrison's number? He handled all the paperwork for George. Patricia froze. She knew George's lawyer well. If he handled the trust, it was solid. Lisa, who had stayed quiet, finally spoke. Mom, if George did this, maybe he had a reason. Patricia's voice rose. What reason could he have for giving my house to her? I reached into the envelope and pulled out a letter written in George's handwriting. Maybe you should read his explanation yourself. Patricia snatched the letter and read quickly. I already knew every word. My dearest Patricia, if you're reading this, it means Olivia has had to show you the truth. I know you're angry, but please understand. I did this to protect our grandchildren and the woman who brought happiness back into Michael's life. I watched you try to control everything and everyone, including me. But Olivia is different. She loves Michael for who he is, not who she wants him to be. She gave us 2 wonderful grandchildren who deserve to grow up in a home filled with love, not strict rules and criticism. The house belongs to her now. This is my final decision and my last gift to our family's future. All my love, George. Tears rolled down Patricia's cheeks. For the first time, she looked truly lost. Daddy? Emily tugged at my sleeve. Are we really staying? I knelt beside my children and hugged them. Yes, sweetheart, this is our home. Grandpa George made sure of that. But where will we go? James demanded, his face red. Sophie and I can't afford our own place. I stood up. You're welcome to stay if you start paying rent. Market rate with a lease. The same goes for you, Patricia. This is still your family home, but under my terms now. Patricia looked up, her makeup streaked with tears. You expect me to pay rent? In my house? Not your house, I corrected. And yes, I do. George left instructions for how the house should be managed. I'm just following his wishes. The room went silent. James and Sophie whispered to each other. Lisa gave me a look of reluctant respect. Patricia just sat there, holding George's letter. After a long pause, she finally spoke. He really planned all this. He did, I said. He wanted to make sure the twins always had a home, and that I had the power to protect them, even from family if necessary. Alex's foot accidentally kicked the table leg, making a loud noise. Normally, Patricia would scold him. But this time, she just stared at the twins like she was really seeing them for the first time. I need time, she finally said, smoothing her napkin. To think. I nodded, putting the documents away. Take all the time you need, but understand this, we're not leaving. And things are going to change around here. As I took my kids upstairs, I heard Patricia quietly crying at the table. A part of me felt sorry for her. Losing control was her worst fear, but another part of me felt relieved. George had given us more than just a house. He had given us the power to stand our ground. Now, Patricia had to decide if she could accept the new reality or keep fighting a battle she had already lost. The weeks following the revelation brought dramatic changes to our household. Patricia had retreated to her sister's house to process, while James and Sophie scrambled to find alternative housing once they realized I was serious about charging market rate rent. My phone buzzed one morning as I was helping the twins with breakfast. It was a text from Michael. Mom called me crying, said you stole her house. Want to tell me what's going on? I sent him photos of the trust documents and George's letter. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Dad was always smarter than anyone gave him credit for, Michael said, his voice warm despite the static of the overseas connection. He knew exactly what Mom would try to do. Are you okay? We're fine, I assured him, watching Emily help Alex pour cereal. Better than fine, actually. The kids can finally relax in their own home. Good, Michael replied. I've got your back on this, Liv. Always have, always will. 2 days later, Patricia returned. She stood on the front porch, looking smaller somehow, more vulnerable without her usual armor of superiority. May I come in? She asked quietly. To talk? We sat in the kitchen, the same room where she critiqued my parenting countless times. But now she perched uncertainly on the edge of her chair, hands wrapped around the tea I'd offered. I've been reading George's letter over and over, she began. He was right about me, about everything. She took a shaky breath. I was so focused on maintaining control that I never saw what I was doing to this family, to my grandchildren. As if on cue, we heard laughter from the backyard. The twins were playing in the sprinkler, something Patricia would have forbidden just weeks ago. They're good kids, Patricia, I said softly. They just need space to be themselves. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. George knew that. He saw what I couldn't, or wouldn't see. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. I had my lawyer review everything. The trust is ironclad. The house is legally yours. It's still your home too, I reminded her. If you want it to be, but things have to change. I know, she whispered. I'd like to try to do better. To be the grandmother they deserve. Over the next few months, we all watched in amazement as Patricia slowly transformed. She started joining the twins for arts and crafts, actually participating instead of just criticizing the mess. She learned to laugh when Alex accidentally spilled his juice instead of reaching for her cleaning supplies in panic. James and Sophie eventually found their own apartment, realizing that depending on Patricia's favor had held them back from growing up. Lisa started visiting more often, remarking on how much warmer the house felt. One evening, I found Patricia in George's study, looking at old family photos. "I found these in his desk," she said, showing me a stack of pictures. They were all candid shots of the twins, Emily's first steps, Alex's birthday party, both of them playing in the garden. He kept every single one. He loved them exactly as they were, I said gently. No conditions, no expectations. Patricia wiped her eyes. "I'm learning to do the same. It's not easy, changing the habits of a lifetime, but," she looked out the window where the twins were chasing fireflies in the twilight, "it's worth it." When Michael finally returned from deployment, he was amazed by the changes in his childhood home. Gone were the plastic covers on the furniture and the strict rules about which rooms were off limits. Instead, he found his mother teaching the twins how to bake cookies in the kitchen, flour dusting all their faces. "Dad would love this," he whispered to me as we watched them together. This is exactly what he wanted. He was right. George's final gift hadn't just been the house. It had been the opportunity for his family to heal, to grow, to learn to love without conditions or controls. 1 year to the day after I revealed the trust documents, we hosted a family dinner. Patricia had helped the twins decorate the dining room with their artwork, proudly displaying their creativity instead of hiding it away. As we sat around the table, Patricia raised her glass. "To George," she said, her voice thick with emotion, who knew exactly what this family needed, even when we didn't know ourselves. I watched my children beam at their grandmother, saw the genuine warmth in her smile as she looked back at them, and knew that George had been right all along. Sometimes love means making hard choices, setting firm boundaries, and forcing people to face uncomfortable truths. But if you're lucky, those tough choices lead to something beautiful. Like watching a controlling mother-in-law learn to embrace chaos, or seeing your children finally feel completely at home in their own house. As Emily and Alex raced off to play after dinner, their laughter echoing through the halls, Patricia turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said simply, "for not giving up on me." I squeezed her hand gently. "That's what family does," I replied. "We give each other second chances." And in that moment, I knew George was somewhere smiling, knowing his final act of love had transformed not just a house, but all of our hearts.